I found the ring in my daughter's nursery, not on a finger, not in a box, but wedged between the floorboards beneath her crib, covered in dust and denial, still warm from the lie it had been hiding. That's when I knew my entire life had been a stage play, and I'd been the only one who didn't have a script. My name is Daniel Rourke, and for 34 years I thought I understood what loyalty meant. I thought I knew what friendship looked like. I thought the man I'd called my brother for 2 decades, the man who stood beside me at my wedding, who held my daughter minutes after she was born, who knew every dream I'd ever whispered into the dark. I thought he was incapable of taking everything from me while smiling to my face. I was wrong about all of it. This is the story of how I lost myself and how I found something far more dangerous in the wreckage. Part 1. The Architecture of Trust, September 2019. Boston. The city looked different from the 47th floor. Cleaner, maybe. More honest in its geometry. I stood at the window of our architectural firm, Rourke and Brennan Design, watching the sunset paint the harbour in shades of copper and gold, and I remember thinking that life had finally clicked into place. "Daniel, you seeing this?" I turned to find Ethan Brennan walking toward me, 2 glasses of bourbon in his hands, that trademark grin splitting his face. He was wearing the navy suit I'd helped him pick out for his presentation to the Copley Square Development Committee. We'd won the contract that afternoon, 18 months of work, $140 million project, our biggest win yet. "I'm seeing it," I said, accepting the glass. "I'm just trying to figure out if it's real." "It's real, brother." He clinked his glass against mine. "We did it. 6 years of grinding, and we finally made it." Ethan Brennan, 6'1", athletic build, maintained through obsessive 5 a.m. runs along the Charles River, sharp jawline, green eyes that women described as dangerous and men described as confident. Harvard educated, from old Connecticut money, though he wore it lightly. Charming in that effortless way that made people want to impress him, to be near him, to matter in his orbit. We'd met in graduate school at MIT. I was the scholarship kid from Worcester, all sharp angles and sharper ambition, working 2 jobs to afford textbooks. He was the legacy admit who could have coasted but chose to work harder than anyone else in the program. Most people assumed we'd hate each other. Instead, we became inseparable. He saw something in my designs, a rawness, he called it, an emotional honesty that his technical precision lacked. I saw in his work a sophistication, a cultural literacy that my working-class background had never provided. We complemented each other, completed each other's sentences in client meetings, finished each other's sketches at 3 a.m. when a deadline loomed. By our 2nd year, we'd started entering competitions together. By graduation, we'd won 3 international awards. By 2013, we'd opened our own firm with a loan from his father and a promise we made to each other, 50-50 always, equal partners, equal voices, brothers in everything but blood. "Sophie's going to lose her mind when she sees the bonus structure," I said, pulling out my phone to text my wife. "Already texted Melissa," Ethan said. "Told her to start looking at vacation houses in the Berkshires. Figure we've earned it." Melissa Torres Brennan, Ethan's wife of 4 years, former ballet dancer turned yoga studio owner, with the kind of serene presence that made you want to confess your sins and seek absolution. Dark hair always pulled back in a perfect bun, amber eyes, a smile that felt like forgiveness. Sophie and Melissa had become close friends almost immediately after Ethan and Melissa's wedding. Weekend brunches, book club meetings, joint family dinners where Ethan and I would cook while our wives drank wine and laughed at our culinary incompetence. It was perfect. All of it. The kind of life I'd dreamed about as a kid, sharing a bedroom with two brothers in a triple-decker in Worcester, listening to my parents fight about money through paper-thin walls. "You remember what you said to me?" Ethan asked, his voice going soft in that way it did when he was feeling sentimental. "First day of grad school orientation, you remember?" I did. I said I was going to build something that mattered, something that would outlast me. "You said you were going to build cathedrals." He turned to face the city again. "Not churches, cathedrals, places where people would stand and feel something bigger than themselves." "Pretentious as hell," I admitted. "Pretentious as hell," he agreed. "But I believed you, still do. That's what this is, Daniel, this Copley project. It's your cathedral, our cathedral." He put his hand on my shoulder, and I felt that old familiar warmth, the certainty that this man would walk through fire for me, that I'd do the same for him, that we were building something together that was bigger than ego, bigger than money, bigger than any individual achievement. I had no idea that in less than 2 years I'd be standing in that same office, staring at financial records that would reveal he'd been systematically stealing from me for 3 years. But that night we drank expensive bourbon and made plans for an empire. My daughter was born on March 15th, 2020, just as the world was shutting down. Emma Grace Rourke, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Sophie's eyes, my stubborn chin, and lungs that could wake the dead. The hospital was a war zone, masked nurses, fear in the air, thick as smoke, new protocols changing by the hour. Ethan and Melissa weren't allowed in the delivery room. COVID protocols. But Ethan waited in the parking lot for 6 hours, texting me every 20 minutes for updates, sending stupid memes to keep me calm while Sophie labored. When I finally walked out with Emma bundled in my arms, he was leaning against his Tesla, mask on, eyes red like he'd been crying. "Can I?" he asked, gesturing to my daughter. I should have said no. Hospital protocols, social distancing, all of it. But this was Ethan, my brother. So I carefully transferred Emma into his arms and I watched him look down at her with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure wonder, touched with something that looked almost like grief. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's absolutely perfect, Daniel." "You're her godfather," I said. The words just came out. Sophie and I hadn't discussed it yet, but it felt right. "I mean, if you want to be." He looked up at me, still holding Emma. "You serious?" "Who else would it be?" He carefully handed Emma back to me, and I saw his jaw working, fighting emotion. "I'd be honoured, truly honoured, brother." Melissa appeared then, maintaining distance but beaming behind her mask. "Congratulations, Daniel. She's beautiful. Tell Sophie we're bringing over meals for the next 2 weeks. No arguments." That's who they were to us. Family, the kind that shows up, the kind that cares. The pandemic was strange for everyone, but for Sophie and me it became this weird cocoon of intimacy. I worked from home, designing virtually, attending Zoom meetings with Emma sleeping on my chest. Sophie, an elementary school teacher, navigated online learning while recovering from childbirth. Ethan and I adapted the firm to remote work. We had to delay the Copley project by 6 months, but we stayed busy with residential redesigns. Everyone suddenly wanted to optimize their homes for lockdown life. Every Friday night, we'd do a Zoom dinner, the four of us plus Emma. We'd cook the same meal in our separate kitchens, open the same wine, and pretend we were together. Ethan would make Emma laugh through the screen, doing these ridiculous faces that made her squeal with delight. "Uncle Ethan's going to teach you to sail," he'd tell her through the laptop camera. "Soon as this pandemic's over, you and me and your dad are going out on the harbour." "What do you say, little navigator?" Emma would gurgle and reach for the screen, and Sophie would laugh, and Melissa would look at Ethan with this soft expression I couldn't quite read. Looking back, I wonder if that's when it started, or if it had always been there, some invisible fault line running beneath the foundation of everything I trusted. By fall of 2020, we were back in the office part-time. Masks, distancing, temperature checks, the new normal. The Copley project was moving forward. We hired 2 new junior architects. Revenue was actually up despite the chaos. I started noticing small things, nothing dramatic, just shifts. Ethan would take calls in his office with the door closed. Normal enough, except he'd never done that before. We'd always operated with an open door policy, bouncing ideas off each other, bleeding our work together. There were client meetings I wasn't invited to. "Just preliminary stuff," he'd say. "Not worth both our time. You focus on the Copley designs." He started traveling more. Quick trips to New York, Providence, Hartford. "Networking," he explained. "Building relationships for future projects." Melissa seemed different too, quieter during our dinner gatherings. She'd always been serene, but this felt less like peace and more like absence, like her mind was somewhere else. "Is everything okay with you and Melissa?" I asked Ethan one afternoon in November. We were in the office alone, reviewing blueprints for a brownstone renovation in Back Bay. He looked up sharply. "What?" "Yeah, of course. Why?" "Just seems like she's been distant lately." Sophie noticed it too. Something flickered across his face, annoyance, maybe, or fear. But it vanished so quickly I almost thought I'd imagined it. "She's fine. The yoga studio's struggling with COVID restrictions, so she's stressed. But we're good. If you need anything, we're good, Daniel." Firm. Final. A tone he'd never used with me before. I let it drop, chalked it up to pandemic stress. Everyone was fraying a little around the edges. It didn't mean anything, except it meant everything. Part 2. The Fractures. December 2020. The firm's Christmas party was subdued. Just the 4 of us, plus our 2 junior architects, masked, distanced, in the conference room with catered food and single-serve wine bottles. Ethan gave a toast. To surviving 2020, to friendship that weathers any storm, to the future we're building together. We all raised our bottles. I caught Melissa's eye across the room, and she looked away quickly. Too quickly. That night, Sophie put Emma to bed while I cleaned up the kitchen in our Jamaica Plain brownstone. We bought it with a Copley bonus, a fixer-upper that we were slowly transforming into our dream home. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" Sophie appeared in the doorway, wearing the MIT sweatshirt she'd stolen from me a decade ago. "Always." "Do you think Ethan and Melissa are happy?" I stopped loading the dishwasher. "Why do you ask?" "I don't know. Melissa's been weird lately. Cancelling plans. When we do see each other, she seems, I don't know, guilty about something." "Guilty?" Sophie shrugged, wrapping her arms around herself. "Maybe that's the wrong word. Just off, like she's carrying a secret. Ethan said the yoga studio's struggling. I asked her about that. She said it's fine. They got a PPP loan, kept all the instructors, but she changed the subject really fast. Sophie came closer, lowering her voice even though we were alone. Promise you won't think I'm crazy. Promise. I think she might be having an affair. The words hit me like cold water. What? No, Melissa, no way. I know how it sounds, but there are signs, Daniel. The distance, the guilt, the way she won't make eye contact anymore. And Ethan's been traveling a lot. For work? Are you sure? Sophie's brown eyes searched mine. Have you verified those trips? Seen the client contracts? I don't need to verify. He's my partner. I trust him. Even as I said it, something uncomfortable shifted in my chest. When was the last time I'd actually reviewed our financial statements? Our client list? I'd been so focused on the design work, on being a new father, that I'd let Ethan handle most of the business operations. Just keep your eyes open, Sophie said quietly. That's all I'm saying. I love Melissa. I love them both, but something feels wrong. I pulled her into my arms, kissing the top of her head. Everything's fine. We're all just exhausted from this year. It's been hell. But that night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Ethan's closed-door phone calls, the trips, the way he'd snapped at me when I asked about Melissa. Around 2 a.m. I got up and went to my home office. Logged into our firm's financial software, something I probably hadn't done in 6 months. Ethan handled the books. He was better with numbers. That's how we'd always divided responsibilities. I started scrolling through recent transactions. Most of it looked normal: payroll, vendor payments, client invoices. But there were transfers I didn't recognize. Small amounts, $3,000 here, $5,000 there, going to an account labeled Development Consulting LLC. I'd never heard of Development Consulting LLC. I told myself it was probably a subcontractor. Some specialized consultant Ethan had hired for one of his side projects. Nothing unusual. Partners made operational decisions all the time without consulting each other on every detail. But I screenshotted the transactions anyway, saved them to a private folder, just in case. January 2021. Emma turned 10 months old. She was crawling everywhere, pulling herself up on furniture, making sounds that weren't quite words but felt, full of meaning. Sophie had gone back to teaching. Hybrid schedule, exhausting but manageable. Ethan threw himself into the Copley project with manic energy, working late, coming in on weekends. I'd arrive at the office Sunday morning to find him already there, surrounded by coffee cups and sketches, looking like he hadn't slept. "You good?" I asked one Sunday in late January. "Never better." But his eyes were bloodshot. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his coffee. "Ethan, talk to me." "Nothing to talk about, just want this to be perfect. This project, it's everything, you know. It's our legacy. It's a building. It's a cathedral." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Isn't that what you said? We're building cathedrals." I sat down across from him. Outside, Boston was locked in winter. Dirty snow, grey sky, that special kind of cold that seeps into your bones and stays there. "Is everything okay at home?" I asked carefully. His smile vanished. "Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because you seem stressed. Because Melissa seems stressed. Because Sophie's worried, and honestly so am I." "Well, don't be." He stood up abruptly. "I'm fine. Melissa's fine. We're all fine. Can we please just focus on the work?" He walked out of the office, left me sitting there surrounded by his sketches, feeling like I'd been slapped. That was the first time I really felt it. The distance, the wall, the sense that the man I'd known for 15 years was becoming a stranger. February 2021. Valentine's Day fell on a Sunday. Sophie and I had planned a quiet dinner at home. Emma was finally sleeping through the night, and we wanted to take advantage. I'd made reservations at Sophie's favorite Italian place for takeout, bought flowers, even attempted to write a love note, though my handwriting had always been terrible. I was in the bedroom, changing Emma's diaper, when my phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. Need to talk. Can you meet me at the office? Now. It's Valentine's Day, I texted back. Sophie and I have plans. It's important. Please. I looked down at Emma, at her perfect little face, her eyes so much like her mother's. Then at Sophie's voice drifting from the kitchen, singing along to some pop song while she prepped dinner. Give me 30 minutes, I replied. The office was dark except for Ethan's corner suite. I found him at his desk, staring at his laptop screen, a bottle of whiskey half empty beside him. What's going on? I asked. He looked up, and I barely recognized him. His face was grey, eyes hollow, like someone had reached inside and scooped out everything essential. I need to tell you something, he said. And I need you to let me finish before you say anything. Can you do that? Every instinct screamed danger, but I nodded. Melissa and I are separating. The words hung in the air between us. I waited for more, but he just stared at me, jaw clenched, fighting something. Jesus.
Ethan, I'm sorry. What happened? She's in love with someone else. The pain in his voice was raw, genuine. I'd known this man for 15 years, and I'd never heard him sound like this. Broken, humiliated, lost. Who? I asked. Does it matter? Of course it matters. Melissa's family. If someone... It doesn't matter, he cut me off. She says she's been unhappy for years. Says I was never really present. That I cared more about work than her. That she felt like an accessory. He laughed, bitter. Maybe she's right. I moved around the desk, put my hand on his shoulder. I'm so sorry, brother. What do you need? How can I help? Just be patient with me. The next few months are going to be hell. Lawyers, division of assets, all of it. I might be distracted. Might need you to pick up more of the operational slack. Of course, whatever you need. He looked up at me with those red-rimmed eyes. You're a good friend, Daniel. Better than I deserve. Something about the
way he said it made my skin crawl. But I pushed the feeling away. This was Ethan, devastated by his wife's betrayal. Of course he was being dramatic. Of course he seemed off. Go home to Sophie, he said. Hug Emma. Don't take a single second for granted. I left him there in the dark, drinking whiskey and staring at nothing. Sophie was furious when I got home. Dinner was cold. Emma was crying. The romantic evening was ruined. We fought. Harsh words about priorities and respect and partnership. I told her about Ethan and Melissa. Her anger evaporated immediately. Oh my God, I need to call her. Maybe give her space. Ethan said she's processing. But Sophie was already dialing. The call went to voicemail. She tried 3 more times over the next hour. Nothing. That's weird, Sophie said. She always picks up for me. She probably needs time alone. Sophie looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Or she's avoiding me because she knows I'll ask questions. What questions? Who she's having an affair with? We sat on the couch, Emma finally asleep between us, and I felt the first real tendrils of unease creeping through my mind. Sophie, I said carefully. If you knew something that would hurt me, would you tell me? She turned to look at me fully. What kind of question is that? Just, would you? Of course I would. Daniel, you're scaring me. What's going on? Nothing. Just tired. Let's go to bed. But I wasn't tired. I was wired. Every nerve ending firing warnings I didn't want to hear. That night, after Sophie fell asleep, I went back to my office. Pulled up those financial records again. Development Consulting LLC. I dug deeper this time. Found the account information. The transfers weren't small anymore. They'd grown $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, always the same day of the month, always to the same account. I found the LLC registration, Delaware Corporation, owner listed as E. Brennan. My hands started shaking. Ethan had created a shell company, was transferring money from our firm, my firm, into his private account. Money that should have been split 50-50 was going entirely to him. I calculated quickly. Over the past 18 months, he'd moved approximately $240,000. My share, $120,000, stolen. I sat there in the dark, my daughter sleeping in the next room, my wife curled up in our bed, my best friend, my brother, revealed as a thief. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the timing. He'd started these transfers in August 2019, 3 months before the Copley project, right when we started winning big contracts. He'd been planning this systematically, carefully. And I'd been too trusting, too blind, too stupidly loyal to see it. Part 3. The unraveling. I didn't confront him immediately. That probably sounds weak, cowardly even, but I needed to understand the full scope before I made any moves. If Ethan had stolen $120,000, what else had he done? What else had I missed while playing the trusting partner? I spent the next week in a fog, smiling at Sophie, playing with Emma, going to the office and acting normal while my mind raced through possibilities, scenarios, betrayals. I hired a forensic accountant, privately, paid her in cash, gave her access to everything, bank statements, contracts, tax returns, vendor agreements. Her name was Patricia Shen, mid-50s, no nonsense, with the kind of sharp intelligence that made you want to confess crimes you hadn't committed. "How bad is it?" I asked her when we met at a coffee shop in Cambridge, away from anywhere I might run into Ethan. She pulled out a folder. "Bad, but probably not in the way you think." She walked me through it. The shell company was just the beginning. Ethan had been creating fake vendor invoices, companies that didn't exist, charging for services never rendered. He'd been inflating actual vendor costs and pocketing the difference. He'd been taking client deposits and diverting portions before they hit our main accounts. Total amount stolen over 3 years, $847,000. My share, $423,500. I sat there, coffee going cold in my hands, while Patricia explained how he'd done it, the sophistication of it, the planning. This wasn't opportunistic theft, this was systematic fraud. "Why?" I finally asked. "His family's rich. He doesn't need the money." Patricia looked at me with something like pity. "In my experience, it's rarely about the money. It's about power, control, proving they can get away with it." "What do I do?" "You have options. You can report him to the police. This is criminal fraud. You can sue him in civil court. You can confront him privately and try to recover the money. Or," she paused, "you can do nothing?" "Nothing?" Some people prefer to just walk away, cut the person out of their life and move on. It's the path of least destruction, though not necessarily the path of most justice. I thought about Emma, about Sophie, about the life we'd built that felt increasingly fragile. How long do I have to decide? Statute of limitations is 6 years for fraud in Massachusetts, but the sooner you act, the better chance you have of recovery. He could be moving assets, hiding money. Every day you wait makes it harder. I thanked her and walked out into the February cold. The Charles River was frozen solid. People were ice skating, laughing, enjoying the winter. And I was standing there realizing that my entire professional life had been a lie. I decided to confront him, but carefully. I needed to understand not just the what, but the why. I waited until a Friday afternoon, sent our junior architects home early, made sure Sophie knew I'd be late, told her Ethan and I were having a strategy session about the Copley project. "Just the two of you?" she asked. "Just the two of us?" She studied my face. "Daniel, is something wrong?" "Everything's fine, I love you." I kissed her goodbye, held Emma a little longer than usual, and drove to the office with a recording app active on my phone. Massachusetts is a two-party consent state, but I didn't care any more about legal niceties. Ethan was in his office, working on renderings for a Providence project I didn't recognize. "Hey," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Got a minute?" "For you?" "Always." He smiled, that easy smile, the one that had convinced me for 15 years that he was incapable of deception. I sat down, pulled out my phone, pretended to check something. Question about our finances. I was reviewing the books. His body language shifted, subtle. His shoulders tensed. His smile became fixed. "And I noticed some payments to Development Consulting LLC. What's that for?" "Subcontractor work," he said smoothly. "Specialized consulting for the Copley project. Technical expertise we didn't have in-house." "Interesting, because Development Consulting LLC is registered to—"
"You, in Delaware." The silence that followed was vast. I watched him calculate, strategize, decide how to play it. He went with offense. "You're checking up on me? Seriously? After everything we've been through?" "After everything we've been through, I think I'm entitled to know why you've stolen $847,000 from our firm." His face went white, then red. Emotions cycling through so fast I couldn't track them all. Shock, anger, fear, calculation. "I don't know what you're talking about." Development consulting, inflated vendor invoices, diverted client deposits. I had a forensic accountant review everything. I have documentation, Ethan, proof. He stood up, started pacing. "You had an accountant review our books without telling me. That's a violation of our partnership agreement. Our partnership agreement also prohibits fraud." My voice was eerily calm. I barely recognized it. "Sit down, talk to me, explain why." "There's nothing to explain. Those were legitimate business expenses." "Sit down." Something in my tone made him stop, made him look at me, really look, and see that the dynamic had shifted, that I wasn't the trusting partner anymore, that I was something else, something harder. He sat. "Why?" I asked again. "Your family's loaded. You don't need the money." He laughed, actually laughed. "You think this is about money? Then what's it about?" "It's about evening the scales." His voice turned bitter. "You ever notice how everyone always talks about your designs, your vision, your talent? I'm the technical guy, the business guy, the one who makes it all possible. But when clients talk about Rourke and Brennan, they mean Rourke. I'm just the other guy. I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. So you stole from me because you were jealous? I took what I earned. I'm the one who keeps this firm running. I'm the one who lands the clients, manages the relationships, handles the operational complexity. You just get to be
The creative genius while I do the actual work. We're 50-50 partners, equal. We're not equal. He slammed his hand on the desk. We've never been equal. You're the star, I'm the supporting actor. Well, I got tired of it. I started paying myself what I was actually worth. By stealing. By correcting an imbalance. He leaned back, some of his composure returning. And honestly, Daniel, what are you going to do about it? Report me. That destroys the firm, destroys both our reputations, destroys everything we built. Sue me? Same result plus years of legal fees, or... He smiled and it was ugly. You could accept reality. I took some money, you found out. We adjust the arrangement going forward. I'll even pay back half of what I took if it makes you feel better. Call it a loan I'm repaying. You think I'm going to keep working with you after this? I think you don't have a choice. You need me, Daniel. You're brilliant at design, but you can't run a business to save your life. You need my connections, my operational expertise, my family's network. Without me, Rourke and Brennan is just Rourke, and you'll be back to entering competitions and hoping someone notices. I stood up, slowly, every movement deliberate. I want you out, I said quietly. You have until Monday to remove your personal items. I'll have my lawyer draw up dissolution papers. We'll split the firm assets 50-50 minus the $423,500 you owe me. You can pay it back over time, or I can pursue criminal charges. Your choice. His face transformed. The urbane mask cracked completely, revealing something vicious underneath. You self-righteous prick, he hissed. You think you're so moral, so pure? Let me tell you something about your precious wife, about your perfect little family. Don't. Melissa didn't leave me for some random guy. He stood up, leaning over the desk, his face inches from mine. There is no random guy. I lied about that. You want to know the real reason? We're separating. My heart stopped. She couldn't handle the guilt anymore, the guilt of knowing what I was doing to you, of being complicit, of watching me steal from my best friend while smiling at his wife and playing with his daughter. He smiled, and it was the cruelest expression I'd ever seen. She wanted me to stop, begged me to stop, threatened to tell you herself, so I told her I'd stop, lied right to her face. And she believed me, just like you believed me, because you're both naive idiots who think the world is fair and people are good. Get out. This is my office. Get out. I didn't recognize my voice. It came from somewhere primal, somewhere I didn't know existed. Ethan grabbed his coat, walked to the door, turned back. You're making a mistake. We can still fix this. We can still be partners. We were never partners. Partners don't steal. Partners don't lie. We're done, Ethan. Fine. His face went cold. But remember something, Daniel. I have
friends, connections, influence. You try to destroy me, and I'll burn your reputation to the ground. I'll make sure every architect in Boston knows you're difficult to work with, unstable, a liability. I'll poison every well I can find. Then I guess we'll both burn. He left. I stood there in his office, shaking, the recording still running on my phone. I'd lost my best friend, my business partner, 15 years of friendship incinerated in a 15-minute conversation. But at least I knew the truth, or so I thought. Part 4. The Deeper Cut. I drove home in a daze, parked in the driveway, sat in the car for 20 minutes, trying to compose myself before facing Sophie. When I finally walked in, she was on the couch with Emma, reading a children's book. The scene was so perfect, so Norman Rockwell, that I almost broke down right there. "You're home early?" she said, looking up. Then she saw my face. "Daniel, what happened?" I told her everything. The theft, the
confrontation, the shell companies and fake invoices, Ethan's jealousy, his threats. She listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, anger, disbelief. When I finished, she just held me. Emma between us, confused by the tension, but quiet. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I should have seen it, should have been paying attention instead of just trusting. "Stop. This isn't your fault. Trust isn't a weakness, Daniel. Betrayal is." We sat there until Emma got fussy. Sophie took her upstairs for bed while I made myself a drink I didn't want and couldn't taste. My phone buzzed. Text from Melissa. "Can we talk?" "Please, I need to explain. I almost deleted it." But something made me respond. "When and tomorrow, anywhere you want, I owe you the truth." We met at a park in Brookline, neutral territory. Late morning. Enough people around that it felt safe, but not so crowded we couldn't talk privately. Melissa looked terrible, hair unbrushed, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and a coat that had seen better days. She'd always been so composed, so put together. Seeing her like this was jarring. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. I didn't sit, just stood there, hands in my pockets, waiting. "I'm sorry," she started. "I'm so deeply sorry, Daniel, for everything, for not telling you sooner, for being complicit, for being a coward." "How long did you know?" "About the theft? A year, maybe longer. I found bank statements, confronted him. He told me it was temporary, that he was fixing a cash flow problem, that he'd pay it back. I believed him." Her voice cracked. "God help me, I believed him." "Why didn't you tell me?" "He's my husband, was my husband. I thought I could fix him, make him see reason. I thought if I pushed him, supported him, loved him enough, he'd stop. But he didn't. He got worse, started taking more, started lying more. And I kept quiet because I was terrified of losing everything, of people finding out, of my family knowing I married a thief." She wiped her eyes. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I tried. I really tried to make him stop." I sat down finally, on the bench beside her, but not touching. Two people who used to be friends, now strangers. "Is there anything else?" I asked. "Anything else I should know?" She was quiet for a long time. Too long. "Melissa, is there anything else?" "I don't know how to tell you this." Ice flooded my veins. "Just say it." "The money he stole, some of it went to the shell company, but a lot of it. Daniel, he was having an affair." The world tilted. "What?" "I don't know who. He was careful. But there were hotel charges, jewelry purchases, unexplained absences. I hired a private investigator last month. He confirmed it. Multiple encounters over the past year. Always the same hotel, always the same days." "Which days?" She pulled out her phone, showed me a spreadsheet, dates, times, locations. My vision started to blur as I recognized a pattern. The same Thursdays, Sophie had her book club meetings. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." "Daniel," I stood up, started walking. Melissa called after me, but I couldn't hear her, couldn't hear anything over the roaring in my ears. Sophie's book club, every other Thursday. She'd been going for 2 years. Ethan travelled for work on Thursdays. Said he had client meetings. The hotel on Melissa's list was in Cambridge, 10 minutes from our house. I pulled out my phone, opened the calendar, checked Sophie's book club dates against the hotel charges. They matched, every single one. I drove to the elementary school where Sophie taught. Walked past security with my visitor badge. I'd been there enough times dropping off lunch or picking her up early. Found her classroom, 2nd grade. The walls covered in student artwork and inspirational posters. She was at her desk grading papers. Looked up when I walked in, smile starting to form, then dying when she saw my expression. "Daniel, what are you doing here? Is Emma okay?" "I need you to answer a question, and I need you to tell me the truth." Her face went pale. "What question? Are you having an affair with Ethan?" The silence was answer enough. She stood up slowly. "We need to go somewhere private." "Answer the question. Please, not here, not in my classroom." I followed her to her car in the parking lot. We sat in the front seats, not touching, not looking at each other. "How long?" I asked. 6 months. 6 months? I laughed. It sounded deranged. 6 months? Since when? Since last summer. While I was working 80-hour weeks on the Copley project? Yes. While you were home with Emma, while I was trusting both of you? Yes. How? The question came out broken. How did it even start? She was crying now. "He came over one Thursday when you were working late."
Said he needed to talk, that he and Melissa were having problems. We opened a bottle of wine, started talking, and something just happened. Something just happened. I turned to look at her. Really look at her. The face I'd kissed 1,000 times, the eyes I'd trusted completely, the mouth that had told me she loved me just this morning. "You fucked my best friend and something just happened." "I'm so sorry. Where? Where did you fuck him?" "Daniel." "Where?" "Our bed." She was sobbing now. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I love you. I love Emma. It was a mistake." "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is missing an exit on the highway. Fucking my best friend in our bed for 6 months is a choice. Multiple choices, hundreds of choices to lie, to betray, to destroy. Everything. I got out of the car, started walking. She followed me. "Daniel, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do anything." "Well, did he?" "No." I turned on her. "About Emma. Did he know while he was stealing from me?" Her face told me everything. "Of course he knew. You probably laughed about it together. Poor stupid Daniel working his ass off while his wife and best friend." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Sophie? Explain it to me. Make it make sense." She couldn't. She just stood there crying, and I felt nothing. No sympathy, no anger, just this vast, echoing emptiness where my life used to be. "I want you out of the house by tonight," I said quietly. "Take Emma to your mother's. I'll arrange for my lawyer to contact you about custody and divorce proceedings." "Daniel, no, please. Think about Emma." "I am thinking about Emma. I'm thinking about how she deserves better than parents who lie, who cheat, who destroy each other. Please, give me a chance to explain." "You had 6 months of chances. You chose him every time." I walked away, got in my car, drove, I don't remember where.
Don't remember how long. Just remember the sun setting and rising again, and me still driving, still running from a truth I couldn't escape. Part 5. The descent. I checked into a hotel, the Marriott in Newton, called my lawyer, a woman named Rebecca Talbot, who specialized in business litigation and divorce. She listened to everything, the theft, the affair, the recordings, the evidence. "You have a strong case," she said, "both criminal and civil, but Daniel, I need you to understand something. This is going to get ugly, messier than anything you can imagine. Are you prepared for that?" "Yes." "Are you sure? Because once we start this, there's no going back. Ethan will fight. Sophie will fight. It's going to be expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally devastating." "I don't care." "What about Emma?" That stopped me. "What about her?" Custody battles destroy kids. The allegations, the investigations, the parents using them as weapons. Is that what you want for your daughter? I closed my eyes, saw Emma's face, her smile, her trust. "What's the alternative?" "You could settle, privately. Negotiate custody with Sophie, negotiate restitution with Ethan, and move on with your life. It's not justice, but it's peace." "I don't want peace. I want them to hurt the way they hurt me." "Then let's go to war." The next 3 months were hell. I filed for divorce. Sought full custody of Emma on grounds of adultery and moral fitness. Sophie fought back hard, hired her own lawyer, accused me of being an absent father, claimed I prioritized work over family. It was all true and all devastating. I filed criminal fraud charges against Ethan. The police investigated. The DA's office got involved. It made the local news. Prominent Boston architect accused of embezzlement. Ethan countered with a defamation suit, claimed I fabricated evidence that I was mentally unstable, that the firm's financial troubles were due to my mismanagement, not his theft. He had good lawyers, his family's money bought the best. Our junior architects quit, didn't want to be associated with the scandal. Clients started cancelling contracts. The Copley project got delayed indefinitely while the developers waited to see how the legal chaos would resolve. Rourke and Brennan Design was dying, and I was the one killing it. Melissa filed for divorce from Ethan. She was the one person who showed me any kindness during this period. Would text occasionally asking if I was okay, offering to help with Emma. I never responded, couldn't. She'd known and stayed silent, and that felt like its own betrayal. Sophie moved in with her mother. I got Emma on weekends. Those 48 hours were the only time I felt human, the only time the rage subsided long enough for me to remember what joy felt like. Emma was confused. Asked about Mommy, asked about Uncle Ethan, asked why we didn't all live together anymore. I lied, told her everything was fine, that grown-ups sometimes needed space, that we both loved her more than anything. She was 19 months old, too young to understand, old enough to feel the fractures. June 2021. The criminal case against Ethan wasn't going well. His lawyers had poked holes in the forensic accounting, claimed the shell company was legitimate, that I'd approved the payments verbally, that I was retroactively criminalizing normal business operations out of spite. The DA was losing interest. White-collar crime between partners was messy, hard to prove, not worth the resources when they had limited budget and bigger fish to fry. "They're going to drop it," Rebecca told me, over coffee in her Beacon Hill office. "I'm sorry, Daniel, we tried." "What about the civil case?" "That's still viable. We can sue for recovery of the funds, but it'll take years, cost hundreds of thousands in legal fees, and there's no guarantee we'll win." "What's my other option?" "Let it go. Take the divorce settlement. Take whatever you can salvage from the firm and rebuild your life." That's not justice. No, she agreed, but it's survival. I left her office and walked along the Charles River. The same place I'd walked after learning about the theft. The same place I'd proposed to Sophie 7 years ago. Everything in this city was haunted now. Every street corner held a memory I wanted to burn. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Daniel Rourke. Male voice. Unfamiliar. This is Jason Webb. I'm a journalist with the Boston Globe. I'm writing a story about allegations of fraud in Boston's architecture community. Would you be willing to comment? My first instinct was to hang up, but then I thought about Ethan's threat, that he'd destroy my reputation if I tried to destroy him. What if I destroyed his first? I'd be happy to talk, I said. When works for you? The article ran 2 weeks later, front page of the business section. Trust and betrayal in Boston's architecture elite. How one partnership collapsed into allegations of fraud and infidelity. Jason had done his homework. Interviewed former clients, reviewed court documents, talked to people in the industry who'd heard rumors about Ethan's aggressive tactics, his corner-cutting, his willingness to bend rules. He presented both sides, my allegations, Ethan's denials. But the tone was clear. Where there's smoke, there's fire. The response was immediate. 3 more clients cancelled contracts with what remained of Rourke and Brennan. 2 other business partners came forward with their own stories of Ethan's questionable practices. The Architectural Review Board opened ethics investigation. Ethan's world started to collapse. His family distanced themselves. The Connecticut money that had always backed him dried up. His father released a statement saying he was disappointed and saddened by the allegations. Melissa's divorce went through. She got the house, significant alimony, and a restraining order after Ethan showed up drunk at her yoga studio, screaming about betrayal. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication, just empty. Part 6. The Awakening, August 2021. The divorce was finalized. Sophie got primary custody of Emma. I got weekends and 1 weeknight dinner. I had to pay child support and half the mortgage on a house I no longer lived in. The financial settlement was brutal. We split our assets 50-50, but the legal fees had consumed most of my savings. I was broken, barely functioning. I'd moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Somerville, bare walls, minimal furniture, a place to sleep and suffer. The firm was officially dissolved. I kept the Rourke name and whatever client relationships I could salvage. Ethan kept his network and whatever reputation he could rebuild. We were both ruined, just in different ways. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Sarah Klein, recommended by Rebecca. Twice a week, I'd sit in her office and try to explain the void where my life used to be. You're experiencing complicated grief, she told me. Grief for your marriage, your friendship, your business, but also grief for the person you thought you were. The trusting, optimistic Daniel who believed in loyalty and partnership. That person was an idiot. That person was human. Trust isn't stupidity, Daniel. It's courage. Courage got me destroyed. Courage got you truth. What you do with that truth determines who you become next. I didn't know who I wanted to become. Didn't know if I had the energy to become anything. Emma turned 2 in March 2022. Sophie and I did separate parties. Her family 1 weekend, mine the next. The first time we'd seen each other in months. She looked different. Thinner, tired, hair shorter. Like the affair and divorce had aged her a decade. "Can we talk?" she asked, while Emma played with her new toys. What's there to talk?
About us, Emma, the future. There is no us. She flinched. I know, I destroyed that. But we're still parents. We still have to figure out how to do this together. We are doing it. You have her most of the time. I have her weekends. It's working. It's not working, Daniel. Emma cries for you every night. She doesn't understand why Daddy doesn't live with us. And she swallowed hard. I miss you, miss us, miss what we had. You should have thought about that before you fucked Ethan. I know. God, I know. I think about it every day. The worst decision of my life, and I can't undo it. No, I agreed. You can't. We stood there in her mother's living room, our daughter playing between us, oblivious to the wreckage. Did you love him? I asked. The question had been burning for a year. When you were with him, did you love him? She thought about it, really thought about it. No, she said finally. I loved the attention, the excitement, the escape from
Being a tired mother and an invisible wife. But love? No, I loved you, still do. Then why? Because loving you was hard. You were always working, always focused on the firm, on Ethan, on building your cathedral. And I was home with a baby, exhausted, lonely, feeling like I'd disappeared. Then Ethan showed up and saw me, listened to me, made me feel like I mattered. She was crying now. I know how that sounds. I know it's not an excuse. But it's the truth. I wanted to hate her. Wanted to feel the rage I'd felt a year ago, but I just felt tired. I saw you too, I said quietly. Every day, every moment. You weren't invisible, Sophie. You were my whole world, you and Emma. I know that now. Too late, but I know. Emma called for her mother. Sophie wiped her eyes and went to her, and I left the party early, claiming work. There was no work. There was just an empty apartment and a bottle of whiskey, and the ghost of a man I used to be. Part 7, The Resurrection, Spring 2022. I hit bottom in April, woke up on the bathroom floor of my apartment, empty bottles scattered around me, unable to remember the previous 3 days. Called Dr. Klein, left a desperate voicemail. She called back within an hour. Daniel, I need you to tell me honestly, are you safe right now? I don't know. Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Was I? I couldn't tell any more where the pain ended and I began. Maybe, I admitted. I'm calling an ambulance. Stay on the line with me. I spent 4 days in a psychiatric facility. Medicated, monitored, evaluated. They diagnosed me with severe depression and PTSD, put me on antidepressants, recommended intensive outpatient therapy. When they released me, Rebecca was waiting with my discharge papers. You look like hell, she said. Feel worse. She drove me back to my apartment, helped me clean up the mess, threw out the bottles. You have a daughter who needs you, she said, and a life that's waiting for
you to claim it, but you can't do either if you're destroying yourself. I don't know how to stop. Then learn. Get help. Do the work, because this, she gestured around the apartment, this isn't revenge on them. This is revenge on yourself. She was right. I'd been so focused on making Ethan and Sophie hurt that I'd forgotten to actually live. The medication helped. The therapy helped more. Dr. Klein taught me to reframe the narrative, not as a victim of betrayal, but as a survivor, learning resilience. The betrayal happened to you, she explained. But the suffering you're experiencing now, you're choosing that. Every day, you stay in the anger, the resentment, the self-destruction. That's a choice. So I should just forgive them, pretend it didn't happen. No, you should acknowledge what happened, feel the pain of it, and then decide who you want to be despite it. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying their sins. It sounded like therapy speak bullshit, but I tried. Started small. Stopped checking Ethan's social media. Stopped driving by Sophie's mother's house hoping to see Emma. Stopped drinking myself unconscious. Started running, taking Emma to the park on my weekends, reading books that had nothing to do with architecture or betrayal. Started designing again, not for clients, just for myself. Sketches of buildings that existed only in my imagination, cathedrals built from pain and hope. One of those sketches became something more, a concept for a community centre in Roxbury, free art classes, job training, computer access, architecture in service of healing. I pitched it to a non-profit foundation. They loved it. Gave me a small grant to develop the design. It wasn't the Copley project, wasn't glamorous or lucrative, but it felt real. It felt like building something that mattered. June 2022. I was at the park with Emma when I saw him. Ethan, walking his dog, a golden
Retriever I didn't recognize. He looked older, greyer, like the past year had aged him the way it had aged me. Our eyes met across the playground. Emma was on the swings laughing, oblivious. He started walking toward me. Every instinct screamed to grab Emma and leave, but I stayed. "Daniel," he said when he reached me. "Ethan." The dog sniffed my shoes. I didn't pet it. "She's beautiful," he said, looking at Emma. "She's gotten so big." "Don't." I know I don't have the right." He shoved his hands in his pockets. I wanted to say I'm sorry for all of it. The theft, the lies, He couldn't say affair. Couldn't say Sophie's name. Why? Why am I sorry? Why did you do it? Any of it? We were brothers, Ethan. You were my family. He was quiet for a long time. The dog sat at his feet, patient. "I was jealous," he said finally. "Of your talent, your integrity, the way people looked at you. I spent my whole life being the disappointing son, the lesser architect, the guy who had everything but earned nothing, and you had nothing and earned everything. It made me sick, made me want to tear you down just to prove I could. So you stole from me, slept with my wife. I slept with Sophie because she was there, because she was lonely and I was vindictive, and it felt like taking something that belonged to you." He looked at me. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did. I see the person I became, and I'm disgusted by him." "Good. You should be." "I'm in therapy now, AA, trying to rebuild, trying to figure out how to be better." "I hope you succeed," I said, and meant it. Not for him, but for whoever else might be in his orbit. "But I can't be part of that journey. You understand that, right?" "I do." Emma called for me. I went to her, pushed her on the swing, and when I looked back, Ethan was gone. Part 8. The Reckoning. The criminal case against Ethan was dropped in July 2022. Insufficient evidence, conflicting narratives. He paid a settlement to the firm, $200,000, far less than he'd stolen, but more than I'd expected to recover. I used the money to pay off legal bills and put the rest in a college fund for Emma. The ethics investigation found him guilty of misconduct. He was suspended from practicing architecture in Massachusetts for 2 years, a slap on the wrist, but enough to destroy what remained of his career. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to Portland, taken a consulting job, was starting over. Good. Starting over was hard. He should know how it feels. Sophie met someone new, a teacher at her school, kind, stable, good with Emma. It should have hurt. Instead, I felt relieved. She deserved happiness. More importantly, Emma deserved to see what a healthy relationship looked like. We worked out a better custody arrangement, 60-40 instead of 80-20. I got Emma.
Wednesday nights and alternating weekends. It wasn't enough, would never be enough, but it was better. Emma started calling me during the week just to talk about her day, her friends, the caterpillar she found in the garden. Those calls kept me alive. Fall 2022. The Roxbury Community Centre broke ground. I was there for the ceremony along with the non-profit directors, city council members and community residents. A reporter from the Globe showed up. Not Jason Webb, someone new. Asked me about the project, about my journey from corporate architecture to community design. I used to think architecture was about legacy, I told her, about building monuments that would outlast me. But monuments are for the dead. I'd rather build something that serves the living. The article ran with a photo of me at the construction site. I looked different than I had 2 years ago. Older, sadder, but also more real. I started dating. Nothing serious. Coffee dates that went
Nowhere. Dinners that felt performative. Dr. Klein said it was progress, that I was learning to trust again. I wasn't sure about that, but I was learning to be alone without drowning. That felt like progress enough. Part 9. The Revelation. December 2022. Emma turned 3. Sophie and I did a joint party this time. Her boyfriend Tom helped set up decorations. My mother brought her famous chocolate cake. Even Sophie's mother managed to be civil to me. It felt like détente, like we were all trying to build something new from the rubble. After the party, after the guests left, Sophie asked me to stay for a drink. Tom's taking Emma to get ice cream, she explained. Gives us a chance to talk. We sat in her living room, the one we'd picked out together 5 years ago, now filled with furniture and photos that didn't include me. I got a call from Melissa, Sophie said. I tensed. What did she want? She's moving to California, fresh start. But before she goes, she wanted to give me something, said it belonged to you. Sophie handed me an envelope, thick, sealed. What is it? I don't know. She said you'd understand. I opened it. Inside were photocopies of documents, bank statements, text messages, calendar entries, and a note in Melissa's handwriting. Daniel, I know this doesn't fix anything, but you deserve the whole truth. What Ethan told you was a lie. He started the affair with Sophie first, used it to manipulate me, to keep me quiet about the theft. The dates in these documents prove it. I should have given you this sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. I hope you find peace. Mem. I stared at the papers. The text messages between Ethan and Sophie started 14 months before the affair supposedly began, before he claimed Melissa wanted to separate, before any of the timelines he'd given me. He'd been planning this for over a year. The theft, the affair, the destruction of both marriages, all of it calculated, systematic, cruel. Sophie was reading over my shoulder. Her face went white. Jesus Christ, she whispered. He told me you and Melissa were having problems, that you'd confessed to him you were thinking about leaving me. That's why I... She stopped, put a hand over her mouth. Oh my God, he played us both. I felt something crack open inside me, some final reservoir of pain I didn't know I'd been holding. We were all pieces on his board, I said quietly. pawns in whatever sick game he was playing. Sophie was crying now. I'm so sorry, Daniel. I should have seen it. Should have questioned. We all should have. But he was good at it. Better than we knew. I gathered the documents. Put them back in the envelope. What are you going to do? Sophie asked. I don't know. Probably nothing. Nothing? What's left to do? He's already destroyed. We're already destroyed. These papers don't change anything except the timeline. But he lied. He's been lying for years.
What's one more lie? I stood up. Sophie stood with me. I really am sorry, she said. For everything. For being weak. For believing him. For hurting you. I know. Do you think we'll ever be okay? You and me? Not together, but okay? I thought about Emma. About the life we'd built and destroyed and were trying to rebuild. Maybe, I said. Eventually. For Emma? For Emma, she agreed. I didn't do nothing. I took the documents to Rebecca. She reviewed them with her trademark efficiency. This changes the timeline of the fraud, she said. Makes it more systematic, more calculated. We could potentially reopen the criminal case. I don't want to. Daniel, I'm done, Rebecca. I'm done fighting. Done destroying myself for revenge. Done letting him take any more of my life than he already has. Then what do you want? I want to send him these documents, let him know, that I see every move he made, and then I want to never think about him again. That's not revenge. No, I agreed. It's something better. It's freedom. I sent the documents to Ethan's Portland address. No note, no explanation, just the evidence of his lies. He called me 3 days later. I let it go to voicemail. Daniel, I got your package. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to explain. I was sick. Am sick. Something broke in me, and I wanted everyone else to break too. I wanted to prove that trust was weakness, that loyalty was fiction, that everyone was as corrupt as I felt. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just wanted you to know that you won. You kept your integrity, your soul. I lost mine, and I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I destroyed the best friend I ever had for no reason except that I could. I hope you find peace. I hope Emma knows how lucky she is. I hope Sophie realizes what she lost. Goodbye, Daniel. Asterisk, I listened to it once, then deleted it. Part 10, The Cathedral. Spring 2024. The Roxbury.
Community centre opened, bright, modern, filled with natural light and possibility. Emma came to the ribbon cutting. She was 5 now, old enough to understand that Daddy made buildings, young enough to think it was magic. Did you build this? She asked, eyes wide. I designed it. Lots of people built it together. It's pretty. You're prettier? She giggled. Sophie smiled at me from across the crowd. Tom was there too, holding her hand. I nodded at him. He nodded back. We'd never be friends, but we could be civil. The mayor spoke. The non-profit director spoke. Then they asked me to say a few words. I stood at the podium, looking at the crowd. Community members, city officials, former clients who'd given me a second chance. Dr. Klein in the back, smiling. I used to think architecture was about permanence, I said. About building things that would outlast me. But I've learned that the best buildings aren't the ones that stand forever. They're the ones that serve their moment, that meet people where they are, that help them become who they need to be. I looked at Emma, at Sophie, at the building behind me. This centre is for everyone who needs a second chance, who needs a place to rebuild, who needs to remember that failure isn't final and pain isn't permanent. It's for everyone who lost something and found the courage to build something new from the wreckage. I paused, felt the weight of the past 4 years settling into something I could carry. It's for all of us. The crowd applauded. Emma clapped so hard her hands must have hurt. After the ceremony, after the photos and handshakes and congratulations, Sophie found me. "That was beautiful," she said. "Thanks." "I mean it. You've built something real here, something that matters." "So have you. Emma's amazing. You've done that." "We've done that. Both of us." We stood there, two people who used to love each other, who destroyed that love through betrayal and pain, who were learning to be something else, something harder, but maybe more honest. "I saw Melissa's post," Sophie said. "She got married, some tech guy in San Francisco." "Good for her." "You ever think about what happened, how it all fell apart?" "Every day, and then I try not to." "Me too." She looked at Emma playing on the center's new playground equipment. "You think we'll ever tell her about what really happened?" "Maybe, when she's older, when she can understand that people are complicated, that love doesn't guarantee loyalty, that family can hurt you worse than enemies." "That sounds dark." "It's honest." Sophie smiled sadly. "Yeah, it is." Tom called for her. She waved back, then turned to me one last time. "You deserve to be happy, Daniel. You know that, right? Working on it. Work harder, because you're a good man, a good father. And somewhere there's someone who'll see that and not destroy it." She walked away. I watched her go, feeling not forgiveness exactly, but something adjacent to it. Acceptance, maybe. Understanding that people fail, that everyone's fighting battles nobody else can see. That betrayal is less about me being unlovable and more about them being broken. Emma ran up to me, breathless and grinning. "Daddy, can we come here every week? I want to take art classes." "Absolutely. We can make it our Wednesday tradition." "Will you take classes too?" "Maybe. What should I learn?" She thought about it seriously. "Painting, so you can make pretty pictures like the building." "Deal." I picked her up, and she wrapped her arms around my neck, and I felt something shift, some final piece clicking into place. I'd been betrayed, destroyed, bankrupted emotionally and financially. I'd lost my best friend, my wife, my business, my sense of self, but I still had this perfect little girl who thought I could do magic, who loved me without conditions, who gave me a reason to rebuild. That was enough, more than enough. Epilogue. Summer 2024. I got a letter in the mail, Portland postmark. Ethan's handwriting. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. "Daniel, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I'm writing this anyway because my therapist says I need to take responsibility to make amends where possible. I'm sober now, 6 months, working construction. It's humbling being the guy who carries materials instead of designing buildings, but it's honest work. And honestly is something I need to relearn. I don't expect forgiveness, don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I see what I did. I see the dominoes I knocked over because I was too sick to stand upright myself. I destroyed you because I couldn't face my own emptiness. I betrayed you because I couldn't stand being your friend when I felt so small compared to you. You were right. We were building a cathedral, but I was too broken to see it, too jealous to appreciate it, too cowardly to match your vision. I heard about the Roxbury project, saw the photos online. It's beautiful. Everything I wish I could create, but never had the soul for. I'm not asking you to respond. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better, trying to earn back some piece of my humanity. I hope you're happy. I hope Emma's happy. I hope Sophie found whatever she was looking for. And I hope you know that you won. Not because I lost, but because you kept building even when I tried to tear everything down. Forever sorry, Ethan, I read it twice. Felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pain, just distance, like reading about someone else's life. I folded the letter, put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond, maybe I wouldn't. For now, I had a daughter to pick up from summer camp, a community centre to run, a life to live that had nothing to do with revenge or redemption or any of the stories we tell
ourselves about closure. I'd lost my best friend, my wife, my business, my naive belief in loyalty and trust, but I'd gained something too: understanding, resilience, the knowledge that I could be destroyed and still rebuild. That betrayal could teach me as much as love, that cathedrals can be built from broken stones. 3 years later, Emma asked me about Uncle Ethan. "Where is he, Daddy? How come he doesn't visit anymore?" We were in the car, driving home from her art class at the Roxbury Centre. She was 8 now, smart, observant, starting to ask harder questions. "Uncle Ethan lives far away now," I said carefully, "in another state." "But why? Did you have a fight?" "Sort of." "Was it a big fight?" "Pretty big." She was quiet for a while, processing. Then, "Do you miss him?" Did I? I thought about it honestly. I miss who he used to be, or who I thought he was. But people change, Em. Sometimes they become someone you don't recognize anymore. Like monsters?
Not monsters, just different, in ways that make it hard to be friends anymore. That's sad. It is sad, but it's okay to be sad and okay at the same time. You understand that? I think so. We pulled into our driveway, a new house in Cambridgeport, smaller than the one Sophie and I had shared, but entirely mine. Emma's artwork covered the refrigerator. Her toys scattered the living room, evidence of life being lived. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart." "Even if people change, you won't change, right? You'll always be my daddy." I turned to look at her, this perfect, trusting, beautiful human who chose to love me every single day. "Always," I promised. "No matter what, always." She smiled, believed me, and I made a promise to myself right then that I would never, never give her a reason to doubt that trust. I found the ring in Emma's nursery on a Saturday in August 27. It had been 5 years since Sophie moved out, 3 years since the divorce was finalized. I was packing up the last of Emma's old toys. She was 9 now, had outgrown stuffed animals and board books. The ring was wedged between the floorboards beneath where her crib used to stand. Gold band, diamond solitaire. Not Sophie's wedding ring. Not mine. Ethan's wedding ring. The one he'd worn when he stood at our wedding, when he held Emma minutes after her birth, when he smiled at me and called me brother while planning my destruction. He must have lost it during one of those affairs, in my house, in my daughter's room, while I was working late, trusting him, believing in him. I held it up to the light, this small circle of gold that represented everything, the friendship, the betrayal, the lies, the loss. I could track him down, send it back, reopen wounds we'd spent years trying to heal, or I could do what I'd learned to do. What Dr. Klein had taught me, what building the Roxbury Centre had shown me was possible. I could let it go. I walked to the trash can, held the ring over it, then stopped. No, not trash.
Trash was too easy, too passive. I went to my workshop, put on safety glasses, placed the ring in my vise, and crushed it. Slowly, methodically, until it was just a mangled piece of metal. Then I threw it away. The last photograph sits on my desk. Emma and me at the Roxbury Centre's 5th anniversary celebration. She's 13 now, tall, confident, becoming her own person. We're both smiling, real smiles, the kind that reach your eyes. Behind us, you can see the building, the cathedral I didn't know I was building, not for legacy, not for glory, but for healing. People ask me sometimes if I've forgiven Ethan, forgiven Sophie. I tell them forgiveness is overrated. What matters is peace. And I have that. I have Emma. I have work that matters. I have a life rebuilt from wreckage. I have proof that you can be betrayed by the people you love most and still become someone worth knowing. That's not forgiveness. That's victory.